Hello, Lisa Star. Really good to see you again.
Hello. Can't believe that we're back.
Yeah, we're doing this, giving it everything we got. Eighth month in a row that we're meeting from other sides of the planet to share our wisdom and to learn from each other. Mostly, I think I learned from you, but you probably learned some things from me as well. And for our new listeners, I'll just state that Lisa Starr, you've been a student and a teacher of natural time and Mayan wisdom for over 26 years. Have your own podcast, Natural Time, that you share so generously about the movement of the dream spell and the 13 moon calendar and the synchronicities with the days and the weeks and the months. And I've humbly invited you for this session of recordings so that we can go through each of the 13 moons of the 13 moon calendar month by month and learn together and share our experience and wisdom with listeners that are curious to learn about the 13 moon calendar. So it's a blessing to meet you again on the galactic month, the galactic moon, the eighth of 13 moons. And as I've told you, preparing for this session, I'm actually really curious about the galactic moon because, on the one hand, when it comes to characteristics of people, it's very clear to me what's galactic. But when it comes to looking at a period of time, like a 28-day month or moon, so I'm trying to grasp what does this mean? Or maybe it's just something that I'm personally not so familiar with in my system, so my mind doesn't really know how to translate this into an entire month. So maybe we can begin by talking a bit about what is this galactic idea, because this whole notion of natural time and this fourth dimensional frequency of seeing the connection between the physical and the spiritual and experiencing it, it's often referred to with the word galactic. And so I'd be happy to hear from your understanding what does galactic actually mean?
Oh, good, because I was just remembering that I would want to start with the etymology, the word origins. And even though I never met Jose Arguelles and I never really read his firsthand accounts, it was all filtered for me learning just by studying the calendar. So if that's your approach, people listening, that's perfectly feasible and it's plenty. You don't need to be looking at his original teachings, but nonetheless, I will reflect on why he chose these English words for ancient indigenous Mayan numeric count that mostly was affiliating the count numbers with animal figures at times. So I really like thinking about what galactic means and galaxy, and it's basically a more poetic way of referring to the Milky Way and, our galaxy being this spill of stars in the night sky that looks to some ancient eye like a spill of milk. So the word galactic has lactose within it. And then the way that that made sense to me, just as a spiritual point of reflection, is that the galactic tone is about not seeing one star in the sky, but seeing the unification of the stars in the sky. And so it is a time where we're led to see the connectivity and unity of, I don't know, of life experience instead of feeling divisive and egoic. It's about me. It's the opposite of that. It's about joining the collective and working in our life naturally, not with effort, but just being drawn to wanting to harmonize, to be in harmony instead of in conflict
Hmm,
and isolation.
hmm, I like that.
So
So,
that's like really the root to me.
hmm, Nice. So when I think about the words Jose Arguelles chose for the galactic tone, uh, harmony, harmonize, modeling, and integrity. So what you just described would be the element of harmony, right? The element that there is this unity existing within everything all the time that we can tap into in the right state of consciousness and the right emotional state. And we can really realize that there is this harmony, this galactic harmony. So, harmony between our planet and the other planets and the other planets from the further planets, and that there is this kind of unified motion that's happening right now that we are a part of in every single moment, even when we experience ourselves as divided and separate, we're still a part of this unified movement that's happening all the time.
Yeah. And I hate to like have it always be like English, because I'm interested in how people would use Jose's English words in other languages, but the word integrity for me is just it's about integrating. And so integrating to me is another frame for pulling things together, especially what's fragmented. I just think that when we integrate, as sort of spiritual seekers or in psychological, settings, we're trying to make whole that which has been impacted towards fragmentation, or we feel broken, but we're going to integrate ourselves. And I think that the galactic time also works to that effect, like pulling ourselves together so
Yes.
that we're not out of integrity. And when people are out of integrity, when they're not integrated, when they're fragmented, disjointed, broken, they will make immoral choices. I strongly see that psychological trend. And I deal a lot with examining the calendar cycles and addiction, and I think that when people are broken and trying to heal themselves through substances, they often are very amoral and they're making choices that are sort of dark and bedeviled. And
Mm,
so this is another example, the galactic time, which is opposite that
mm,
impulse. It's like a moment when a lot of us can be very strongly supported to make the right moral choices. And I'm not talking about like biblical morality, but more our inner compass of being in integrity, being whole.
mm. That's really beautiful. What I was seeing when you were describing that, and this is also really connecting with how I feel integrity in myself, is really when my heart and my mouth are one.
Mhm.
So when I'm really communicating what's really in my heart. And it's interesting in Hebrew, the word integrity, the translation for it is yoshra, which means literally being directly like in one line with God. This is
Nice.
what the word literally means.
Nice.
And it's an everyday word that we use to describe the same as integrity. So, so from what you're saying, if I understand, so this is a month that we would experience potentially the possibility of feeling that we are more driven to act out from really an integrated place, or maybe on the other scale of it, feel really out of integration with ourselves in order to kind of maybe reach some kind of a boundary and bounce back during this month, like find this integrity within us, even if just for a glimpse of a moment from a place of not being integrated.
Yeah, and to be experiential, like even if someone were to listen to our recording 5 years from now, I think we're caught in a time historically where integration is very difficult. There is a lot of very pointed division that has surfaced, and it's kind of like a historical moment where we could look back and identify maybe something about like an internet age just allowed people to be very segmented and in the frequency or niche that they care about at exclusion of others,
Mm,
not having to make connections. or sacrifice their personal beliefs. Like any one of us on whatever part of the political or societal spectrum has become isolated, perhaps. So I think that the galactic tone holds these like ancient golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you principles. But if there's friction, meaning it's difficult to get through 28 days and feel like you can drop right into that sort of holiness, it's it's probably not coming from you, the person listening. Not that you're holier than others, but if you're paying attention to this frequency, it's probably not your personal struggle that it's hard to get to integrity or model harmony. It's because the outer world or the greater world is just not landing in that frequency at all right now.
Yeah, I can
So
really
it's
agree
almost
with
like we
that.
would be fighting in the galactic moon to drop right into the comfortable place that the 13 moon spell leaves us. And then it's not as easy as we had hoped because there's too much friction, in the airspace of where we're trying to draw our spiritual inspiration from.
Beautifully phrased.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we could spend like, for me, each of the moons, Jose Arguelles just, described a question, and some of them are more perplexing than others. Just for the example that we begin the year and each wave spell with, what is my purpose? Question mark. What is my challenge? Is the lunar tone. How can I best be of service? What form will my service take? How can I best empower myself? And so on. And and those are really beautiful leading questions that have open-ended answers. But when we get to the galactic tone, for 28 days, we have a yes or no question, which is, do I live what I believe?
Mm.
And it feels very like some kind of sword in the stone. Like, let's confront ourselves, or within the 28 days, we're going to get an answer. And if the answer is sort of veering into, I don't live what I believe, I think that causes distress, which makes this time less comfortable and harmonious than we'd want. But what I want to say is that it's not maybe that we don't live what we believe because we don't want to, but because we can't, because of this external strife that, like, I want to live what I believe, but I'm in a paradigm where there isn't room to do that right now. That would just be an example. Again, we want to keep it timeless and not about current events. But like, if you're struggling in this moon and you're like, I'm not in harmony, I'm not in integrity, I feel like I'm completely falling apart. It's just because I think something is working against the correct impulse right now to be holistic and be moving from our hearts. But, like, we're just in a different kind of war zone, perhaps.
Yeah. 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 It's definitely very relevant to look at the times we're currently living in, and put integrity as a way of being, and look and observe how is integrity showing up in our collective field right now. And I can really see from my experience that integrity is forcing more and more people to stop doing certain things, not necessarily yet knowing what to do, but just to stop doing certain things, even small behaviors like speaking in a way, in a polarizing way, or forcing themselves to a job that they know is making them sick, or really questioning their family constructs, even though it's very, very scary to imagine to take apart a certain family construct, and like these very basic things that were unquestionable until quite recently for most of the people. From my experience, many people, more and more people, are from a place of integrity, just realize that they just can't keep living in this disharmonious frequency in their own personal lives. And I can say that for me personally, the concept of integrity was revealed to me when I was already 15, in this kind of course that I did, self-awareness course. And the idea of being my word really touched me when I was taught or explained that it is possible to live a life based on being your word. That if you say something you're going to do, you're actually intending on doing it. And if you're not going to do it the way you said you intend to, so you communicate that and say what will be. And I can say that at the beginning it was quite challenging because it was very uncommon for me to, from the environment that I was living in, that people would put so much relevance and weight on their own word and their own intentions and really believe that they have the power to walk their talk. But over the years, it's become my suit in the world, and I don't know otherwise. I just don't know how to be in a way. If I move out of integrity, I feel like something is really, it hurts. And so whenever, from the first moment I was exposed to Jose Aquiles' interpretation of the Mayan wisdom and the galactic tone, I've been really observing. So, what is this integrity? Who are these people that are embodied integrity in their way of being? That were born into this way of being of integrity, the people born on the galactic day of the wave spell. And it's really amazed me to realize that they really model integrity, these people. I really follow this tone in particularly very close because the topic of integrity touches me very personally. And also I was always amazed every time again and again when I give map readings to people born on the galactic day and I say the word integrity straight away. They're like, yep, totally. I'm in for integrity. Like for me, not being in integrity is the worst thing that someone can do. And it's one of these things about this wisdom that's always again and again like reassured me that there's some truth, some profound truth in this wisdom. Was meeting galactic people that kept reassuring me that they're really on it when it comes to integrity. Since they were young, they remember themselves like really caring about keeping their word and really being disturbed by people around them not keeping their word. And so, on the one hand, I see it as a very high value in our world at the moment to keep as a human being, galactic tone, this integrity. And at the same time, it's the eighth of 13. And I'm always like, wow, so this is like just another step. If we look at the 13 tones as a process of development and evolution. And I don't know, I wonder what you think about this, like about the positioning of the galactic tone being the eighth.
Well, I have thought about it. And hopefully that people who are following the 13 moons also follow 13-day wave spells, because I think you can kind of extract the teaching from the 13-day wave spell and move it into the 13 moon year. The galactic day in a 13-day wave spell is always a reference to the wave spell prior. So it's, to me, I really love that the Zolkin itself is called the loom of the Maya, and we're thinking about actual weavings, textiles that are made in that territory still today. They're famous for that capacity to weave really intricately. And so it's like weaving the wave spell prior, the 13-day wave spell prior from the past and everything we learn into the one we're in, creating this like thread and bond so that our spiritual walk is a very strong piece of fabric to support us.
Mm,
And so then using that in the 13 moon year, we're not referencing last year or what have you so much in the galactic tone, which is really creative to my mind, because then I'm not just saying, well, the galactic moment is about pulling in the past wave spell into this one. Like I have to go wider. But think of it this way, because I also describe this a lot, that the first 6 moons of our year are very active, and uncomfortably so. At the beginning of a new cycle, we are just thrown into new karma. It's delivered to us, magnetized. We attract a purpose for the year. We have to negotiate it. Usually it's an evolution from what came before, but it has this whole new bundle of karma that we have to like unwind and address. And it takes all the way through the rhythmic moon to be sort of stabilized and in a rhythm with that. And then the resonant moon is like, we talked about this, like kind of like a vacation or the day of rest, or just the quality of opening ourselves meditatively without action, just being kind of in a pause of expansion and listening and infused with the divine world inspired by it. And then the galactic moon, to me, is taking all of that action and kind of human-esque life on earth, sentient, purpose with the divine input that we received. And that's a weave. And as we were talking about it, and I was listening to you, I wanted to remember as well that we need to be in integrity before we go into another highly active part of our wave spell, the solar moon of intention and the planetary moon of manifestation, because we're given permission next moon, and we'll talk about it much more when we get there, to be intentional, to be like, this is what I want. Can I have it? Please, I see clearly. This is what I'm aiming for. May I please reach this destiny? But we needed all of this preparation to have that clear sight and intention. Many years begin, and people's ideas for their next project begin with intention. But I'm very like emphatic that what we learn here is that that's human ego. Like, I have an idea, let's go. But when we're in the 13, the wave spell process is like receiving purpose that isn't from ego. And it takes a very long time till we have the more egoic moment of asking or almost demanding clearly, this is what I need to fulfill my destiny. So I think it's a really good cleansing moment in the galactic moon. And to have 28 days, you get to feel all the nuance of it. And I will say more about that, in a moment. But that we want to be in integrity when we make our request. The solar tone to me is about communicating with the sun god. So we're speaking in the language of the sun god. That's why it's called solar. And in order to be at that frequency or level of clarity, we have to have harmony within, integration, and like an inner moral compass. Our values or integrity are individual to each of us. It doesn't mean just like the Old Testament kind of tablature of the commandments. It means like what is really harmonious to my heart. And I think there's commonality among humans about what that is, but it's not like one set of scripture. It's just like you find out what feels whole to you, which is what I think 28 days of the galactic moon actually lets you discover.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I can really see it now, how you described it. I I found myself often referring to the galactic moon, kind of like the analogy of our Shabbat, our seventh day, and like the resonant is like our Friday evening. It's like when we open up kind of to the spirit, to the divine, to the higher purpose, and then the galactic day is the day that we're just resting in the harmony of what is. Because once we've opened up, so we can only be in a place of letting, of kind of being loose and receiving what wants to come. And then we are modeling ourselves, like who we really are, our integrity. This is how it was coming to me over the years. And for me, the galactic tone, galactic people in general, they're very harmonious people. They have a certain frequency of harmony that they bring into the space. There's something pleasant to be around when it comes to the galactic people. And it's really something I've been following over the years, like all the different signs, everybody, there's something very pleasant about the presence of galactic people because it's really like they know, they bring this inner knowing that there's a bigger picture that's happening and that in this moment we are a part of this bigger picture and we are existing and everything is existing in this greater galactic harmony, and they recognize harmony as something that exists, like they bring the possibility of harmony into the room. And um, and this is why I was really curious on how I will feel during the galactic moon when there's this possibility of feeling the harmony in things. And on the one hand, I could really see that, like in a very delicate way in my life experience in this moon so far. And at the same time, I can see that the places where I'm not completely sure about myself within myself, where I'm coming from, where I'm creating certain creations in my life, how I approach communication from certain aspects of myself that are not yet so clear to me, or I'm not in harmony with myself with them. And the reflection I receive from the reality, not necessarily from people directly, but this is the feedback I receive inside, is very clear to when I'm not speaking from integrity, from pure, like really heart intent, more than ever I've felt. Like maybe also because I'm really going through this moon aware of this quality. But I think I'm saying here is that on the one hand there is the harmony, but it's like once we slide out of the harmony and we're aware that there is a harmony, so it could be very challenging, even painful to realize when we're outside of our own potential to be in harmony.
Yeah. It's to me, every moon, every 28-day moon is a journey. So often we start the moon with a very clear sense that something has changed, and there'll be an infusion of like, want to have more harmony. I am more harmonious. Like we immediately get the flavor of the moon as soon as we enter it. But it's a journey, the first week gives us like this fiery mental picture of what harmony or integration feels like. And then there's the second week where it's sort of a spiritual way of perceiving that. And when we get into the third week, the days 15 to 21, we're in the West and in the place that we call blue, and there is that's where emotions rule. And so being in emotions about integrity or harmony can be some real work, I think, because emotions are how we like also purify our bodies, right? Like feelings, and like how they say crying is actually stress comes out of your tears from your tear ducts. Like that's sort of the
Mm.
function biologically of crying. So that emotional outpouring or anger, it's all about expressing something that is like stuck in us outward. And so I think there can be like rough patches of any moon when we have to come into the emotional part of being human and let like a volcanic rupture happen and hold that, because it's our bodies, it's our life experience. And suddenly we are in a form of upheaval or release, and it can feel not harmonious at all, but it's in service of getting closer to being able to live what we believe. And, we're speaking from this moon, each of us, and I've been really activated to not feel in harmony. But when you were talking about galactic and galactic people, it reminded me of when I was in college and I discovered like that the earth is like infinite millennia old. And I was 20 years old, and I could see the tiny insignificance of myself against the vastness of time and space. And that made me feel annihilated, right? Like I am not worth anything in this? And what is the point of aspiring? Is a full youthful existential crisis. And to me, that is also part of what happens within the galactic moon, is that we're somehow comparing ourselves and our actions and even our dreams to the whole galaxy. And where do we fit in the scheme of all of sort of creation? And it can feel very disheartening. So maybe in our lives, within a very crowded human planet that we know so much about, it's also like looking out at a sea of stars and feeling, I'm connected to all this, but where is my place in it? I think that would be a sort of a natural shadow uh, demand of the galactic tone.
Mm.
And whenever we have 28 days, we really get into the nuance of each of these tones.
Yeah, I really, I've really been finding myself so far in this moon, often just hearing myself ask, like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? Just I've noticed so many times I've been asking myself this question in this past time since we've begun the moon, and I really appreciate about this wisdom how it enables us very simply to access the shadow aspects of what we can easily relate to as the enlightened part of the wisdom. And the shadow axis is really accessible to us to really recognize ourselves in it and work with. And I can really clearly say from what you're saying that, yeah, this, on the one hand, accepting that there is harmony can bring a lot of peace, and even seeing ourselves, finding ourselves inside harmony and coming from harmony and being in harmony with our inner self. And this is a very beautiful thing, but really the life's journey is to illuminate all this shadow and unconscious pain that we carry with us, to hopefully make it a bit better for the next generations to come and for this generation that's already here. And it's a really, like, especially in these times, it's a very rough journey to recognize the disharmony that we are also a part of, and that also has a part within us. It's a very awakening and very, yeah, painful experience from my experience.
Yeah, it's as if like if we're spending 28 days conceptualizing a value system that's a little outmoded in our culture, I think widely, this generation, meaning we have just an infusion of so much information and a lot of personal freedom that comes with knowing anything we need to and wherever it is on the planet at any time, at our fingertips, that creates a lot of thinning of our consciousness and fragmentation. You know what I mean? Like we're just spread really thin, as they say. And I think holes begin to wear, like it's too thin to be strong and sustainable. So to be in the galactic moon, like I'll think about how some of my relationships that could be, touch and go. I have adult children or partner, like, oh, we're not having the same issues. People are getting along. And that's that heart expression. Like if we get to the clarity of what's in my heart, I don't want to fight with those I love. So the harmonious nature of the galactic moon supports something like that, and it's almost like you don't notice it because it feels good. So I think the galactic moment might be painting out the disharmony that can't be fused. And at the risk of sounding kind of preachy, like this is an indigenous calendar. Surely the Maya in their civilization had all the civilizational issues for their time that we have for ours. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't a nirvana, but when we reflect back on it, it seems really simple and maybe closer to the elements and nature. So I think a lot of us reach to this kind of path in order to time travel to something that had simplicity and was pure and closer to like divine sources on the planet and in the cosmos. And so those of us paying attention to this are going to feel like, wow, what is happening right now is really out of integrity with who I am as a sentient human being. It makes my heart race. It makes my shoulders hunch. I want to protect my heart. It's like a tension, the mental activity from a technological age must be fragmenting to the kind of peaceful, harmonious ways we want to train our brains. So we come to the galactic moon and we just discover that. Like, I can't get in integrity with our current model for human life. Doesn't mean we won't find our way into some comfortable places within it, but I think that's the study right now is just like, well, here we are coming towards the end of the moon. I mean, whenever you're listening, you might find by the end of the moon, I'm only incrementally clearer that I feel harmony. It's not been a huge, like, dramatic shift. But I think that question, do I live what I believe, is just something we want to fight for, even if we're fighting, underwater or we're fighting in a battlefield. We want to get internally closer to living what we believe. It's just like imagine that you're in an oppressed society and you're not allowed to publicly live how you believe. That's how it can feel for us now, even if we're not literally, under the hand of a real oppressor, but we might feel like we kind of are, and
Yeah,
that we have to hide who we are. So,
we definitely can feel that these days. We can definitely feel that. So, what would be a kind of tip or guidance that you can offer someone in this time of the galactic wave, galactic moon?
hmm. Well, I am just a really, I remind anyone who knows the tribes paying attention to me and Alon that I am a blue storm. Alone is a white mirror. And we're kind of at the end of the 20 days. So our perspective is right at the kind of culminating teaching. The day after my birth signature is yellow sun, and that is the arrival in enlightenment. So take what I say as someone who, pushes a certain amount of force or urgency. Like we want to get to enlightenment. I'm here to help. So I want to just kind of just claim that. But I just think that the way to actually live really truthfully in the galactic time is to have your life sort of allow that it might be upended in some way so that you can reset your internal values to be closer to who you truly are, and that might require discomfort and shame about what's wrong, why am I not happy in the galactic moon or in everyday life, or you know, there are really epic moments following this calendar where you feel like you're just cruising and then you'll just fall into a pothole and not know how it happened. And so the battle to discover where integrity lies in ourselves and our relationship to societal human integrity or lack thereof, or the confusion about who has the actual right values, that mess, it's going to unwind in this moon, but you might really feel like you're in the mess while it does.
Hmm.
And then the last thing is just like the solar moon is very fast and fiery. So, what I have said about this galactic time is like you got to fight for the peace and relaxation that you can find. And if your life is kind of depressed, meaning you don't have motivation, you could almost like forgive yourself that because you're going to have more motivation than you can almost physically sustain when we turn to the solar tone, which is just fiery. That word, I'm a beam of sunlight that can cross the whole galaxy. I'm so powerful. Like you might look back on the galactic time as like, well, I was good that I had some rest, even if it was like lack of motivation. So I guess I'm saying now, if you don't feel motivated, it's probably your body creating balance by anticipating how it's going to be time to blast off really soon.
I can really feel that, definitely. That's beautiful. It's really beautiful how you phrase your wisdom. I can really resonate with this place of rest for a moment in the galactic, also on the galactic days of the wave spell and in this galactic moon. It's really, it's like we've passed the halfway point of the wave spell of the year, and just before we take off to the kind of final stretch that's really speeding up and then eventually leading us to the cosmic, which is just like pff, everything together, kind of try to just be with it before another rebirth into a new motion. So this is really kind of time I feel to rejuvenate and to just kind of observe this point of what's been until now and realize where we are and be it, model it, and adjust ourselves as the best we can to make sure our heart is moving forward with the steps we take before the solar moon really sends us in a blasting kind of into the future intention work, which is really already another speeding up. So I'm really happy we can surface these this wisdom and understandings that we share. And I'm very thankful that we've met once again, Lisa. For our listeners, I'll just say that you can also listen to Lisa quite regularly on Natural Time podcast on Spotify. And for me, and both of us are available for map readings and consultations in every meaningful topic of your life, from your relationships to your spiritual development, emotional development, making positive changes, realizing and reconnecting with our source and our true power, and much more. So we're here for you. Feel free to reach out to us in one of our channels. And Lisa, I thank you so much for meeting me on your
It's so,
morning and my evening.
no, we're always, um, I'm going to like postscript, meaning I'm going to add what is really coming through. And I'm sorry because you just did this beautiful closing ritual, and I'm going to jump back in with another little bit of download, if that's
Please.
okay. Like, I'm someone who loves metaphors. I guess I just feel like it helps to lock into experiences we can all easily imagine. So, what I was sensing was, imagine that you're an astronaut and you're getting strapped into your rocket ship about to blast off into outer space, and you realize something is wrong and you can't fix it. The countdown is already happening. I feel like my current galactic moon, and potentially the handful that we will experience, for anyone watching or watching these through the 13 moon years to come, if there is that panic state of like, this isn't going to work, I'm not intact, I'm not whole, I don't have integration, I feel very split apart, and therefore I don't have integrity, which means I don't really care about other people. I can hardly deal with myself. Like, I think that would be a natural response to being human on the planet right now.
Hmm.
And partly because we've been rattled not just by current events, but like this buildup of living in a technological internet age. And maybe it's just this exploding moment where it doesn't feel whole or safe, actually, but we've all agreed it's our reality. So if you don't feel safe in your rocket ship, this terrible truth is that even if you're annihilated during takeoff, your soul is right with divinity, and none of us are going to be annihilated likely on a physical plane through the rest of this 13 moon year that you're living. So it's much more about the spiritual development of letting these kind of ego deaths or death of some role you're playing in society to come back to a truer form of existence. I mean, it's been played out age after age, like how humans grapple with their beingness. So I just want, like, if you feel like, no, I'm not at all put together, that's just part of your emergence, and your sense of divinity has you. You're exactly in the right place. And when we move towards the solar moon, you are in conversation with your God, and it's fast paced and innovative, but you will feel connected, and that will soothe some of the confusion that you might be having now.
Hmm. Beautiful. That's beautiful.
There you go, everyone.
It was great
Helps
that
me. I mean, I think all of us,
go go.
I would just, yeah, I think people that just sort of talk off the top of their head about this calendar are just sort of channeling some form of it, including Jose Arguelles. And, the channel is what we all share when we follow the calendar. We get to be together in the channel, and that is great for me as well as if it helps anyone learning.
Yes, I totally relate to that, and I'm really happy um, that we had the chance to get even more of you this time and have your I really enjoyed the perspectives you shared and how you perceive it. It's really given me a lot, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Alon, for doing it, shepherding us.
Yes, it's a true pleasure, and we will be meeting again soon.
It's true. Okay.
Yes, so thank you. Bye bye.